Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged. Coming up this week, Universal reopens, and Craig Williams was there. He'll tell us about that. Disney has also released more information about what their park reopening is going to look like, and they have also donated $5 million to help programs that support diversity, and we're going to talk about that as well. All that coming up next. From the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida, this is the Diz Unplugged. Universal Orlando reopened this past week, and Craig, you were over there for it. Talk to me, please, about what that looked like, because I've been hearing various reports about how that went.
Okay, it went fine. First thing, I want to apologize. Your sound dropped out coming through to me for a second, but it's back on now, so we are all good with that.
You've taken to muting me now. Is that what you're doing? If you don't like what I'm saying, you're just gonna.
No, you weren't muted. It was just literally you were dropping out on my Skype connection. I think we got all those issues, though. Hopefully now it's all.
7-second delay kicking in.
Yeah, it's
All right.
A lot of stuff going on. But anyways, back to that. Yeah, Universal was great. So they reopened last Friday, and basically how it happened was on Monday and Tuesday they were team member previews, and that was like the first test for them. And then Wednesday and Thursday was the annual pass holder previews and anyone who was staying at the hotels. And then Friday was the official reopening public day. And we have vlogs from the pretty much all two preview days, on June 3rd and then 4th, as well as the opening day. So you can actually get a good idea of what was happening in the parks that day. But the previews were pretty much a mess. They were very busy. I don't think that it was close to what Universal will allow their capacity to be, but I have to imagine that it was still pretty busy compared to what they want people, how many people they want to be there. And then Friday for the actual public reopening, it could not have been better. So the crowds were light. I would guess probably somewhere maybe around like 5,000 in each park. I that's just a complete guess. I know what I've been there for some very slow days going back to when I even worked there and knowing what the crowd levels were in the parks, and it felt like one of the slowest days that I've ever been there for. And so yeah, it makes sense when you think about it, because the crowds that are going to show up are pretty much right now going to be annual pass holders, other locals, and not people traveling in. A lot of the annual pass holders went on their preview days because they were excited to get back in, and they, on top of that too, they wanted to be there for the previews. They wanted to be getting into the park thinking that maybe it would be busy once it reopened. And so then when it actually came to the public, no one really showed up that much. So I think our friend Natasha from CNN, she told me that out of all the people that she was talking to, I think only one of them said, like, yeah, we were already down here visiting anyways and staying close by, so we figured why not drive up for the parks. And everyone else basically was just annual pass holders. So very slow. And because of that, it was very enjoyable.
Well, I mean, were people like, because this is the big question when the parks reopen, are people going to wear the masks? Are people going to social distance? What were you seeing? Were people following those guidelines, or was it a challenge?
For the most part, I mean, there's some areas of those parks, any theme park, that will bottleneck. We've been talking about how, at least I have with friends, that when Disneyland reopens eventually, just think about Fantasyland and Adventureland and some of those areas of that park. That will be an absolute nightmare when it comes to distancing. The walkways are probably not even 10 feet wide, so you can barely get people distancing there. Universal doesn't have it on Disneyland levels of issues with close walkways, but some areas are definitely a little bit tighter than others, especially like in the Wizarding World. It's very realistic to what you would expect from the movies. So it was built to a smaller scale. Everything is a lot closer together. It's also still the most popular areas of the park, so people are flooding to get back there, especially in Hogsmeade with Hagrid's. It's very, very popular back there. So in some of those areas, it's hard to actually distance, but beyond that, it's actually it's pretty easy to walk around and keep your distance from other people, especially over at Universal Studios Florida. I feel like there the pathways are a lot wider. I had on opening day, public reopening day, I had no issues. Even half of New York was closed down for a Volkswagen commercial filming, but I still had every place wide open and able to walk around. And so that's distancing. If the crowds remain what they were right now, it's not going to be an issue. The mask wearing, that's I want to say that most people were wearing masks, and that honestly is the truth. What you'll see most of the time is the people who are walking around and they'll just slightly pull down the mask so that way either their nose is exposed or their nose and mouth are exposed and they have their chin open. And you see that not very often. It's not the majority, but I did notice that quite a bit. And a lot of times people were just doing it for a couple seconds, not even taking a drink or eating,
just to breathe,
just to do it. Yeah. And then they were putting it back up. So that I was seeing a lot of. I was seeing a lot of kids who were taking their masks off, and rather than the parents enforcing anything, they're just kind of letting it happen. And so that was a lot of that was probably the most recurring thing that I saw was kids taking their mask off and parents just leaving it go. And we kind of knew that would probably happen because many people leading up to this told us, like, well, what do you expect our kids to do when they don't want to wear masks? I mean, my answer would be make them wear it anyways, but I'm not a parent, so I'll let Denny talk about that and go down that road on it. But for the most part, everyone was super respectful. People were trying to stay out of the way. Some people had vacation brain and they were, bumping into other people and not really paying attention where they're going. But other than that, it was a normal day in the park.
Well, we when they announced Disney Springs was reopening, we threw a poll up on the Dis Unplugged Facebook group asking people what they thought about it. And so yesterday, I kind of reworked that poll, the exact same questions, but exact same responses, except with the question, how do you feel about Walt Disney World reopening? And you know what? It stayed pretty consistent in terms of how people feel about this. The three responses were great, I'm going, happy to see them reopen, but I'm staying home, or way too soon. So again, not a scientific poll, but in the last day, we've got almost 2,300 responses to that. And 38% said, great, I'm going. 53% said, happy to see them reopen, but I'm staying home. Just about 9%, a little less than 9%, felt it was way too soon. So I think that's good news for Disney. And we're going to talk about Disney's reopening plans in a little bit. But
I have a question.
So,
yeah. Greg, on the opening day, on the preview days, did you see or did you hear of anybody being turned away because of capacity?
No. Capacity was not. Still, even on the preview days when it was busier, capacity wasn't a problem at all. I don't know the numbers or figures or anything like that, as I've said, but there would have to be a flood of people to come in for capacity to really become an issue, I think, at this point. Because if if they could still let people in beyond what was already there for the annual pass holder previews, then that's like, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So I think capacity for the most part will be fine.
Cool.
And what have you been hearing about the days since the public reopening? Has it stayed kind of slow? I mean, from what you've heard?
Yep, it's still on the slow side. So my sister was just there yesterday, and she said that the longest wait she saw was Incredible Hulk for 35 minutes, I want to say, and everything else was less than that. So that's pretty good, just to kind of compare that to the annual pass holder preview days. The Hulk was about a 75-minute wait that day, and about the average wait that day, I want to say, was around like 30s. But in the days that have followed, the waits have only been around 5, 10, 15 minutes for most stuff. Some things jumping up into the 20s or so. And the attractions that are using virtual line, like Hagrid's and Forbidden Journey and Gringotts, they're only, from my experience on them, I was only waiting about 10 to 20 minutes once I got my virtual line return time windows actually happening and getting in line. So really not bad at all. So, because like Hagrid's really threw me for a loop because of the social distancing and the lines. I was all the way outside the main building. That, like, the last time Rhino and I went and rode together, I think when we were standing there, we waited 2 hours from that point, with not even including the downtimes. It would have just been about a 2-hour wait. But because of the social distancing and the lines and having everyone spread out, it was only about 20 minutes. So it was kind of wild to see that.
Well, one of the things I'm thinking is that this is what we're going to see when Disney reopens. Parks aren't going to be full. You might have it on the first day or so where you get a lot of people coming in, but the parks are going to be relatively empty because a lot of people just aren't comfortable with traveling. And again, that poll we're talking about, this is Disney's highest affinity group. These are hardcore Disney fans, and more than half of them are saying, I'm not going anywhere near this. And what I think, though, is that as the parks open and people start posting, especially at the Magic Kingdom, when people start posting on social media pictures of an empty Magic Kingdom and start talking about 5-minute waits for Peter Pan's flight, which I think is going to be closed anyway. But you know what I'm saying? These really, really short waits for historically busy attractions. You're going to find more people wanting to come. You're going to find more people wanting to show up. And I think that's where the challenge is going to be. I don't think the challenge is going to be when they first open. I think the challenge for Disney is going to come when it gets, when that starts getting out. But
I think it's going to be interesting 2 weeks from now. I want to see what happens 2 weeks from now. These massive crowds have been protesting. There's crowds enough at Universal. I want to see what happens 2 weeks from now. And if the cases stay low, I think that's going to draw people back.
Yeah, that'll bode well.
If it bodes well for everything. But there's a lot of large crowds around right now. And I think it's going to, I want to see what happens with that first.
Well, let's kind of transition into that a little bit because I do want to talk about this. Disney announced that they were making a $5 million commitment to help nonprofit organizations that advance social justice, with the first $2 million going to the NAACP to support their advocacy and education programs, which I think is great that they're doing. But it's part of a larger discussion. Now, some people were upset last week when we did last week's show that I didn't mention anything about the protests. And so I do want to talk a little bit about that here, just because I think it's important. But the reason we didn't say anything on last week's show is that we don't normally comment on things that are going on in the world beyond Disney. So this story kind of gives me a little bit of an intro to that. First, to anyone that was offended that I didn't talk about it last week, I do apologize. It was not out of indifference. It's just two different sides of the brain go on when we're doing these shows. You know, we try our very best to keep politics and social issues and things like that out of this show. I like the fact that this show is a respite from that. However, what's going on right now is different. And some of actually all of the comments that I received last week about this were really respectful, and people were hurt. And I couldn't understand why. I'm like, why would that hurt you that I didn't say something? But then I saw this. Now, this is yesterday. This was one of the things that just kind of got to me. Our Moving to Orlando Facebook group, we have about 10,000 people in that group, all of whom are either have moved here to be closer to Disney and want to tell people about it, or are planning to move to Orlando. And a young woman posted in that group yesterday, "Hi guys, I want to preface this by saying no debates, please. I just have an honest question. I'm obviously a black woman and I'm moving to Windermere. Will I be in a safe space for people of color there?" Now there's more to this post, but I want to stop there. Just the fact that she had to post that makes me very sad. But this next part is what really broke my heart. "Or should I prepare myself? If the latter, I can handle it, but I just want to be prepared, especially since there's a lot of aggression right now." That broke my heart. That I know it happens and I'm used to dealing with it and I can prepare myself for it, but I just want to know. And look, this is not my experience, right? I'm not saying I haven't experienced a form of discrimination in my life as a gay man, but not like this. It's not anywhere on the same level. And so, and this was one of the other comments I got. Someone said, and again, it was respectful. It wasn't nasty. Someone said that, is the reason you didn't talk about it because it doesn't affect your community, and mentioned the fact that when the Pulse shootings happened here in Orlando, we dedicated an entire show to that. And of course, my first response to that was to get my back up. But then I thought about it. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably accurate. It doesn't affect me personally. So I can see this stuff going on and I can say, wow, that's awful. That shouldn't happen. What's for dinner? I'm not proud of that. But if we're going to have a conversation, let's be honest. When I drive down the street and a cop is behind me, I'm like, do I have a taillight out? Am I speeding? Am I going to get a ticket is what I'm worried about. But for the black community in this country, it's a very different thing. But because it's not my experience, I can't wrap my head around it. And that's what these protests are. These protests are listen to us. And I don't fully understand. But if I'm going to be willing to listen, maybe I will. And I also don't like the fact that the protests are being, in some quarters, being overshadowed by rioting and looting. That's a very small percentage of this. And I think the rioting and looting, the people commenting on it, are using that to invalidate the voices of the people who are protesting peacefully and trying to get their voices heard. So I will not conflate those two things. I will also not conflate the actions of certain police officers with the police community at large. So I think it's important not to paint with a broad brush in either regard. I'm very proud of the fact that there was a protest in downtown Orlando on Saturday. 10,000 people showed up, not one arrest. And there were police officers and sheriffs marching with the crowd and taking a knee and showing solidarity. Very proud of that. I was also very proud of the responses coming back to that young woman on our group. talking about Orlando is a very diverse city. It's a very my neighborhood is very diverse. All the neighborhoods around here are very diverse. And I was really proud of the way people were responding. But the fact is, this is a reality. Like when I think about moving to a new place, I'm thinking about, I might think about the crime rate and like, what's the crime rate like? Is it a safe area? That's not what she's asking. She's not asking if Windermere is safe for crime. She's asking if it's safe because she's Black. And this isn't genetic. This isn't something that's you're born with. This is something you learn. So, and of course, and I don't think I'm alone in this. I'm afraid to talk about it. Because
I have something to say.
Go ahead, Kevin.
This is not my experience either, but I stand on the shoulders of people who protested. I have rights today for people who protested, because people protested, and it was Black drag queens who threw the first rocks. So I stand on their shoulders. I have rights. I am married to the man I love because I have rights that started with a protest, a violent protest. So I have to stand with the people who are protesting. I have to say that regardless of whether this is my experience or not, I'm an empathetic person and I would like to do better. I would like to be the best advocate I can be. I could like to be the best friend I can be. So I stand with the people who are protesting. I can't stand in front of you, but I will certainly stand behind you. It's the best I can do. It is not my experience. I live for you to share your experience. But I stand on the shoulders of people who protested. So do you, and so does John. And I think to myself, we have to be advocates. We have to be advocates for people who are feeling less than. No one should feel less than.
And, I was thinking about this yesterday because, again, when we say it's not our experience, but, I think I'll speak for myself. What are these protests about? People are feel like they've been screaming into a vacuum and no one's listening. There's this injustice going on and no one is listening. And that I can relate with. That I can relate with on a very different issue. But back in the 80s, when my community was laying down in the middle of Fifth Avenue in New York to raise awareness about AIDS because our community was dying and no one was listening. So again, very different issues, and I'm not trying to conflate the two. I'm just saying from the standpoint of that feeling of screaming into a vacuum that this horrible thing is going on and no one is listening and no one is paying attention. But you take a look at what's happening now. There's something different about this. This isn't thoughts and prayers that's going on right now. There's
this has been going on for 400 years.
Right. No, I'm just saying though that these protests and the impact they're having, it's different. It feels different.
It's like a movement.
When you see it, yeah, exactly. I think this is going to have an impact this time. Because what are we, 3 weeks? 3 weeks since George Floyd was murdered?
I believe it's just 2.
2 weeks?
As a matter of fact, his funeral is today.
And think about it in the past, how many times these stories have been a day or two. And then it's on to the next thing. This isn't going away. And it seems like people are listening. It seems like police departments are listening. Local and state governments are listening. It seems like even at the federal level, people are listening. And
we need to make more listen, Pete.
We do. And it starts with us. It starts with us.
I'd like to say, too, along those lines, Pete, in the gay community, we have non-gay allies. These are the folks who are our friends and support us and are part of the reason why we have the rights we have today. We are Black allies. We are friends of the community. We stand by you and with you. Kevin talks about this all the time. He's created a safe space on Twitter. You'll never see anybody post anything negative or racist on his Twitter.
And there's no discussion of this. It's, as you called it, a respite. We laugh, we joke, we tease each other, we send silly memes back and forth, but it's a safe place to come and meet Disney fans.
Yeah. This is the fine line we walk with all of our shows, right? People, I'm sure right now, are probably not watching anymore. Have probably decided this isn't what I came here for. You've stopped talking about Disney. People are probably giving us thumbs down on our video. This is the fine line we walk. If we address these issues, which are very important issues and should be talked about, we risk that. So, we're trying our best.
But I also have to say, if you are upset that I'm talking about this and you want to unfollow me, bye, goodbye.
I was just gonna say that I remember when the Pulse shooting happened, and we decided to address it, and I was very concerned we'd lose followers and stuff, and said, okay, that's fine. And it was the same attitude I came in here with today. Was if we lose followers, I probably didn't watch anyway, to be honest with you.
And if we lose business, if Dreams Unlimited Travel loses business because of it, that so be it. It is what it is.
Denny, you look like you've got something you want to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is a teachable moment for everyone. And I think we are experiencing it I know we are, on a global level. It's not just our country. It's everyone who is looking at what is being said, is hearing it on a deeper level, and is understanding their personal responsibility regarding the issue. Just to ask some really tough questions. And a lot of it, people might find uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's okay. Get a little uncomfortable and just ask yourself, what does this mean to me and how can I help? And then take steps forward. And I think it's a great thing to address, and because its impact, its ripple effects are deep and far and wide.
I saw a shirt today that I can't wait to buy. I just have to go back and find it. And it had 2 words on the front of it. It said human, and then there was a period, and it said kind, K-I-N-D, humankind, and underneath it said be both.
Yeah.
I think we have to realize that we're humans first.
Right. Craig, go ahead.
Sorry. One of the things that's been most upsetting and hard for me to come to realization with this, and it's been comments we've seen before this, but it's right now one of the best ways that we can all grow from this is by not just listening, but also educating, and not educating ourselves, not letting it just stop at listening and letting it stop there, but by seeking out content that can help us. If we can't even understand, at least maybe grasp the situation a little bit better, and truly try to get a better grip on Black Lives Matter. But one of the things I've seen over and over, and it's something that does need to happen, is that with content creators, especially in the Disney community, there's so many, there's voices out there that should be bigger. And the fact is, if there's people out there saying like, we need that voice out there, that means that the Black community is going to Walt Disney World and feeling like it's not this perfect place, which is what it should be for everyone. If we all were all having the exact same experience, every man, woman, person, everyone out there, however you see yourself, if we were all having the same exact experience, then it doesn't matter who's sitting here giving their opinion. But that means that there truly is, every single person is out there having a different experience when they travel to Walt Disney World or any theme park. And that's sad, because it is a place that so many people are looking for joy. And anyone who shows up and feels like they're being judged, looked at differently, that's a big issue. It upsets me. So I know I'm trying to now seek out more of the Black content creators in the Disney community. Something that I don't watch YouTube videos besides what we do. we live it, so I don't really watch it, but I know that in my education, that's part of what I need to do. So I hope that that's what everyone else can do as well too.
That's a great point.
We need to use our voices. We need
Indeed,
to speak
we do.
up.
All right. There's no easy segue out of that. So let's talk a little bit now about some of the stuff we're hearing about Disney's plans to reopen. John, you have been dealing with this like crazy all week with the changes now to reservations. Talk about what's been happening.
All right, so a couple things I want to say, preface this with what I'm going to tell you right now is of this moment and of this minute. This is very common for new information to come out, information to change. So please take that, don't watch this tomorrow morning and have something come out this evening and go, well, John was wrong about that. Stuff is changing. The second thing is I like everybody to go and get a whiteboard and your scientific calculator so that we can look at this together and try to figure out the equation. All right, so Disney has started to contact their guests who are traveling to Walt Disney World who already have reservations prior to theme park opening. So one of the things I want to say is if you are still concerned about your reservation and you don't know what's going on and you don't know what's happening, this is by design. Disney is working with the folks who are supposed to come and have a reservation before the theme parks actually open, and this is how they're dealing with this. About a week or so ago, I think it was last Monday, they released letters to their guests traveling up to June 21st saying that you have a couple of choices with your reservation. The resorts aren't opening until June 22nd. The parks aren't opening until July 11th. So your choices are you can cancel your reservation for a refund, a full refund.
You were going to say refill, weren't you?
For a free refill. Like your mugs. And all fees and cancellations and all that stuff will be waived, except for if you purchased insurance. That's the only thing they can't refund is your insurance. Your second option is you can modify to a future date within 2020. Can't go into 2021 yet. Nobody can. You can modify to 2020. You are going to be placed either in a DVC resort or Fort Wilderness, and you are going to have to pay any difference in price. So if we're staying at Pop Century, sorry about that, guys. We're staying at Pop Century and, the only thing available is Riviera, you're going to pay the difference in price between those reservations. Because we know that DVC and Fort Wilderness are going to be the only options for when the resorts open. So that's before the 21st. As of June 22nd, when the resorts actually open, folks traveling between June 22nd and July 4th, sorry, trying to keep it all straight in my head, July 4th, have received letters that say you can cancel, you can move your date, same as before, or you can accept the reservation as is in a new resort, most likely a DVC property. So if you are traveling June 23rd and you are going to stay at All Stars, they're going to say to you free of charge, no additional charge, you can stay at whatever DVC property they have selected for you. If you don't like the DVC property they selected for you, then you can try to change it for an additional fee. So as of right now, only through June 4th, folks have been contacted with what to do going forward. My suspicion is probably today, tomorrow, in the next couple of days, we'll see another letter come out for those traveling between July 4th and July 11th. I apologize, I'm having trouble with keeping the dates in my head. Traveling up to July 4th, you've been contacted. The next batch going out will be July 4th to July 11th, and it'll probably be the same offer. Take the resort we're assigning you with the knowledge that the parks aren't open, change to a different date in 2021, or cancel. Now, a couple of things. No dining plans. Dining plans are being canceled on all reservations. We know that you have to have a park reservation. There's a lot of questions about park hoppers. What will they do about park hoppers? We don't know yet. The assumption is that park hopping will go away and the park hopper option will be refunded to people, but Disney has not made an official note on that. And if you had tickets up until the opening of the theme parks, those will be refunded to you as well. So it's kind of complicated. There's also a layer in there with folks who rebooked when COVID-19 happened and they placed you and they wanted to rebook you. There was a free dine recovery offer. Since dining's going away, those folks are getting 35% off the reservation, and that can be moved to another date. The 35% off would apply on the other date as well. But again, there's a difference in price in the resort. So there's a lot of levels to this. I think everyone's going to have to take a chill pill and relax. Everybody wants to know, I'm traveling in November, what's going to happen to my reservation? We got to wait and see what Disney says about it. As far as we know, only DVC properties and Fort Wilderness will be open through the end of the year. As far as we know, no dining plans, and all dining's been canceled through the end of the year, and all Fast Pass Pluses have been canceled through the end of the year. Some people are saying, I didn't get that information. That's what we're hearing. So.
Yeah. So the folks that have been using travel agents like ours, Dreams Unlimited Travel, are very happy right now that they did, because it's their agents who are dealing with this, this craziness. And just again, a shout out to our Dreams agents. They've been unbelievable with this entire situation and how they've taken care of their clients. But Denny, you're maintaining that incredible document on the homepage of the Diz that outlines all the stuff that's going on right now. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you're seeing?
All right. Number one, that the homepage of all the reopening stuff, that's Jackie's. That's not mine. But I did write up. I got to give credit.
Oh, sorry, Jackie.
She has worked tirelessly on this thing. This is not mine. But I was writing up the articles on Saturday night as the information started to appear. I'm hearing, I heard from a viewer regarding the travel restriction from the tri-state area, so Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. And because one of the pieces of information that dropped on Saturday night is that travel restriction. Ron DeSantis, our governor, has said, hey, if you're traveling from one of those three areas, even by roadway, you've got to quarantine. You've got to do a 14-day isolation period. And by the way, we don't want you on Walt Disney World property, if that is you. And so there's a little group of people, not a little group, there's a group of people who are going, okay, what does that mean? And of course, there's conjecture online now if Governor DeSantis will go ahead and rescind that anytime soon. People are thinking he will. But we have to wait and see. We're having a little bit of a spike here in positive tests for COVID-19. So I don't know that while we're having that spike that we're having, if he's going to necessarily peel that back, but we'll have to wait and see there. One of the other biggest pieces of information was the fact that character dining will be limited only to Topolino's Terrace at Disney's Riviera Resort. And in thinking of that one piece of information, and having been there for both their brunch and their Mickey's breakfast a la art that they have, I've thought, okay, what does that mean for that location? Why would it be that location? And I really think it boils down to two things. Number one, the physical space in that restaurant is pretty vast when you compare it to other restaurants. They've got enough room to go ahead and maintain social distancing, to push those tables out, all that jazz. Number two, they have a song and dance routine that the characters do every single breakfast that they have. They did it for the New Year's Day brunch as well, and they'll do that a couple times during your seating. So I have a feeling they're going to have Minnie and Mickey and Daisy and Donald come out and do their really fun, really cool, really festive dance and song with everyone, and then they're going to wave and head back out the door. I don't think that they're not coming around. I don't think they're going to come around all the tables, and they can't have kiddos smooching all over them. So I kind of think they've said the experience will be modified at Topolino's. And so I have a feeling that's what we're going to be seeing. But there's still a lot of questions out there. Something else that caught people off guard on Saturday night was bringing attention to the fact that Disney has switched the age required. They've gone ahead and kind of put that in, that you've got to be 2 and up now to have that face mask on. And when Disney Springs initially reopened, it was 3 and up. Now it's 2 and up. And so there was a lot to ingest on Saturday night, and it dropped late in the day. But it is something that, yes, it's going to affect so many guests who have reservations. And like John said, it's changing all the time. So just hang in there.
I'd like to address the travel restrictions for just a minute, because this is something I'm heavily into with our condo, the Dreams Villas that we rent out to folks, because there have been restrictions placed on short-term vacation rentals as well in the state. And one of the things they've said is that under the travel restrictions, not only the tri-state area, but also Louisiana is involved in that, is that the governor has said that people will be stopped if they are suspected to be tourists, and they'll check their licenses, and if there'll be some kind of retribution, I don't know what, for not quarantining. So I think people think, well, what's going to happen to me if I don't quarantine? How are they going to know? They're apparently looking for ways to check to make sure that you are being in quarantine. So this is a consideration when you think about coming to Walt Disney World. Great, all things are fantastic, but what happens if you arrive and someone says to you, you have to stay quarantined for 2 weeks, or you're not allowed on Disney property? That's a big consideration to take into.
Yeah. Now I want to circle back just a little bit, Denny, talking about the mask requirements now being from 2 years old and up. And as Craig mentioned earlier, you're a mom. So you have a perspective on that maybe the rest of us don't. How do you keep a mask on a 2-year-old?
Oh, Pete, that the age-old question that everyone is dealing with right now. I don't think there's any. There's no easy answer. Kids being kids, they have very little choices of their own, right? They are told what to wear, sometimes what to eat, when they're going to bed, when they're taking a nap. So I think if it were me, and I'm picturing my eldest when he was 2, and coming here, they're not going to fully understand. You can't reason with a 2-year-old at the time. I mean, you can try, and they'll get some nuggets. I would, if it were me, I would give them a choice. Do you want to wear this mask or this mask? Which two? Is it Spider-Man or is it Toy Story today? And then so that kiddo gets to pick the mask that they're going to wear. And see, here's the thing that we saw at Universal that Craig and Rhino found out, is that they have these areas, these comfort areas, where you can take your mask off. Now, we've heard rumors that maybe Disney is going to do the same thing in their parks, but we don't, I don't think we know for certain if they're going to do that. I would take advantage of those times as well. And, going back to the advice that Bob used to always give, go back to your resort and take a nap, right? So I would take some of those, nuggets and do the best that I could with my 2-year-old, who's not going to fully understand exactly what's going down, but maybe just if they're excited about getting to wear their favorite mask, you have to wear a mask. Which one of these two do you want to wear today? That's going to help. Also, bribing. I'm not above bribing if you need to. So we get to have an ice cream sundae. I would wear a mask if I get a sundae at the end of the day. I mean, maybe your kiddo will as well. But I think parents who are coming, they're going to know this is going to be a very different trip than it normally is. And
would kids respond to Mickey wants you to do it? The rule is you have to do it if you want to go into his theme park. Is that something that would be your response? For some kids, because every kid is different, for some kids, that's going to speak to them. For some kids, mom and dad wearing their masks and modeling the behavior in front of the kid, that's going to make a big difference.
for other kids, it's going to be wearing it around the house before you travel. It's getting used to the fact that this is a normal thing. This is no longer abnormal, at least for this period of time. And so I'm gonna wear a mask if maybe I'm, just making dinner, doing whatever around the house. Can you show me your mask? Which mask do you want to wear today? We're going to go out to the park, or we're going to swing by the grocery store, that kind of thing. So that it is not this great moment to be had by all arriving on Walt Disney World property, so that it's a little bit more normal before you even come here.
Well, for some folks, it may be normal already. For some folks, it might be what kids are doing just to go, to the grocery store or, whatever.
Well, as I've mentioned, I plan on being on property June 22nd when the resort's open. I'm staying at Bay Lake Tower. I plan on being on property when the Magic Kingdom reopens on July 11th. I have my reservations in place for both of those. I don't know how I'm going to feel wearing a mask all around property. I don't know. I will say now, I'll take the opportunity to do a little plug that we have these lovely Diz masks available. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, I don't know. But I've also said to myself, if I'm not comfortable, if it's not something that is okay for me, then it's incumbent on me to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not incumbent on Disney to change their policies. So I'm going to see. We're starting to get into our warm weather now. It's been very hot and very humid the last few days. Well, it's been apocalyptic the last few days with some of the storms we've had. But I'm asking I'm outside and I'm like, oh, Lord, what is this going to be like wearing a mask? Out in this, and it remains to be seen. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but we are in fact going to find out. So, and it just seems like every week there's new information coming out about this, and I think some people are upset that I have a friend of mine, Scott, who was slated to stay at Pop Century. Disney offered to let him move his reservation over to Saratoga Springs for an additional $1,000, which was more than he had paid for the Pop Century room to begin with. So more than doubled the price of what he was expecting to pay. And I understand why people are upset about that, but I actually think Disney wants people to cancel. They want people to cancel.
I agree 1,000%, Pete.
That a lot of this is designed to try and minimize the number of people on property. And I think because a lot of people say, well, when are the rest of the resorts going to open? Well, that's a good question. And we don't know the answer to that. But right now, until Disney doesn't want to limit the number of people in their parks significantly, those resorts are going to remain closed. They're not going to open them. Mm-hmm. And now, it was kind of assumed that people staying on property would get first dibs getting into the parks when they reopen. And now we're being told that's not the case, that being on site no longer guarantees entry into a park. Now, for me, that's fine because I live here, right? So I'm fine with that. But if you're on vacation and it's 6 to 5 and pick 'em as to whether or not you're going to get into a theme park, that's going to be a problem.
Well,
that's going to
be a problem. The good news is, though, Pete, I'm thinking that people will know. I hope. I'm going to knock wood on this. I'm hoping that people will know if they have a park reservation before they're scheduled to arrive. It may not be the park they want. It may not be the day they want, but at least they should have some knowledge beforehand, and they could then adjust their plans accordingly. However, people purchased air or taken time off from work or done whatever the things they need to do to prepare to travel. Doesn't make it any easier if you say, 30 days before, I don't have the park reservation I want, so I'm going to cancel. That's a difficult decision to make, but I think people will know before they travel.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to find out in, the first round of this in just under 2 weeks. And like I said, I will be covering the opening of the resorts on the 22nd. I'll be live streaming. I don't know from where or on what platform. It's going to be YouTube or Facebook, but stay tuned. But we'll be doing that. All right. Before we wrap the show up, let's do a little bit of housekeeping.
Pete,
Yep.
before we go on, can I change something? It has been pointed out to me that I was historically inaccurate, and I feel it needs to be said. I said that my rights stood on the shoulders of black drag queens who threw the first rocks. It has been pointed out to me that that's inaccurate. I stand on the shoulder of trans women of color who threw the first rocks, and representation is important. I apologize for being inaccurate. It was trans women of color who threw the first rocks at Stonewall. That needs to be said. I apologize for being wrong.
Okay. Well, there's that. All right. So let's just go to housekeeping. And I just want to remind everybody, last week, June 1st, we launched our Spanish language version of the SiDisney, SiDisney.com. It's been doing very well. We also have a YouTube channel, SiDisney, youtube.com/SiDisney. They're doing shows in Spanish there. And so please go check those things out. Also, speaking of YouTube channels, we've created a YouTube channel for Moving to Orlando. So it's youtube.com/Moving to Orlando. The shows that we do, the Moving to Orlando shows, are still going to be going up on the Diz Unplugged as well as that channel, but we're adding a lot of content to the Moving to Orlando channel that's exclusive to that channel. So please head out and subscribe for us. And Corey definitely wanted me to mention these masks that we have. I'm not putting this on right now because I'm all right.
There you go. There it is.
There you go. I'll tell you, they're really nice. It's like a polyester nylon material, but what I really like about these, they have an opening for a filter in them, and it comes with one filter, and you can buy extra ones. I think additional filters are like $1. And these are custom made, right? These are made to order, so you can customize them. You can put names on here. You can do stuff. They're all done to order. These are not medical grade masks and shouldn't be used as such. They're only to be used as a face covering. And we do plan on offering some other stuff, but right now we have a number of designs, some really cool designs. This is by the company Magic Your Band. And I forgot what the price is. I think it's $15, and that includes priority shipping. They're getting these out in about 5 to 7 working days. So there'll be links to all this stuff in the show notes right below this. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, you can head to dizunplugged.com, and our show notes for this and all our shows are found there as well. So what else do we have for? I know, John, you must have something.
I don't know. Do I?
My house is clean.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really think we have anything.
Really?
Well, there's a lot of information out there about, trips, ABD trips being canceled and cruises being canceled, and we can go on for hours. But check out the site for the most updated list of all of the things that have been canceled going forward. Any Disney?
Yes, the list that Denny is maintaining. I'm kidding, Jackie. I'm kidding.
All ABD trips through the end of July have been canceled. They're allowing people to move trips in August and later. If you have a problem and I'm your travel agent, you can write to me, Kevin at Dreams Unlimited Travel, and I will try and make sure that you know what's going on at this moment. Again, it's moving, and it's a kind of fluid situation. So,
well, they just announced, probably should have mentioned this somewhere in the show. They just announced all European cruises for the rest of the year are now canceled. So transatlantic sailings, all of them have been canceled. I don't think that comes as a big surprise to anybody that they were going to do that. But there it is.
We had held out hope that perhaps the end of the summer would have been okay, but the fact that it's now through October is.
We have a cruise in October. John and I had a specialty cruise on a different cruise line. We were going to do a Broadway cruise with Broadway stars out of New York City, and that has been postponed till 2021.
Yeah.
So I think that's writing on the wall. I also
Okay,
heard,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin. No, go
it has
ahead.
nothing to do with this, but I heard that Broadway was going to be closed until August or September 6th. I'm being told by an insider that we should not expect to see a Broadway show until 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which kills me
Yep.
because I have tickets to see Hugh Jackman in The Music Man.
Oh.
But that's
Well, you'll just be a little less gay for a few more months. That's all.
that's never going to
I
happen.
was just gonna say, not gonna happen.
Well, look, your gayness goes up significantly with Hugh Jackman and The Music Man. But I'm hoping that cruises resume in at least 3 and 4 nights, maybe double dip Castaway Cay, not going any ports. That's what I'm hoping for in the August-September timeframe. I'm going to tell you what. I was having this discussion with Sean last night. If it's Disney, I'll do it. Any other cruise line, I won't. Not right now. Disney, I trust. And when they open up those cruises, I'll do one. Because again, maybe I'm crazy, but I think to myself, Disney cruise with 30% capacity? Yeah, sign me up.
Yes.
Sign me up. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to be there. But we'll see. We'll see how that all.
I know we watch Disney very closely. I think it's really cool for folks to sort of go out and look and see what other cruise lines are talking about. Royal Caribbean last week talked about the fact that their buffets are going away. They're converting their big buffet, Windjammer, into something else. They wouldn't say what it was. They're talking about revamping their systems completely internally to be completely touchless. So everything will be paid on your phone and your dining reservations. Even things like you used to get letters come to the captain's dinner or meet the captain, even stuff like that's going away. So if you want to see the trend in the industry and possibly what Disney will do, go check out what Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, all these other cruise lines are doing. It's really fascinating. They're talking about robotic housekeeping. That they actually have a company that they've been working with for a while that will go in and sanitize a room robotically. So cool stuff out there.
Well, we're just one bad day away from Terminator. So there's that. That's going to do it, folks, for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next Tuesday with another edition of the Diz Unplugged. Have a great week, folks. And remember, stay out of the damn lakes. Bye.